Okay, so I'd like to call to order the Town of Niskayuna Conservation Advisory Council. This is the this is the November 5th meeting, 2025. Laura, could you please call the roll? Okay, great. We have some minutes to approve, so let's start with the September 9th meeting minutes. Does anybody have any comments that they want to make, corrections?
Yeah, I think I do. So line 60. I'm not sure I said that. I think somebody else said this. Okay.
Hold on. Okay, so we should change.
50.
Any other comments? Okay, does somebody want to make a motion to adopt the minutes?
Motion to adopt?
Second?
I'll second that.
Okay, all in favor, say aye.
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 Any opposed? Any abstentions? Hearing none, we adopt the minutes. Okay, let's go to the October 8th meeting minutes. Are there any corrections that anybody wants to make?
I didn't notice anything.
Okay. I was not at that meeting, so I'm going to abstain from the vote, but if somebody wants to make a motion and second it,
I move to approve the minutes.
Second.
okay, all in favor?
I
Aye.
Okay, the motion carries with ayes, but one abstention. Great. Since we have nobody privileged to the floor, we can move right on to the EAFs. Okay, so the first one is EAF 2025-09, that's 3406 Albany Street. We have seen this project, I believe, 2 times before. It's a site plan application for a special use permit for a place of worship. The property is an R2, and a place of worship is allowed. It's a principal use, but it requires a special use permit. Okay. And there were a couple concerns. One is that it's on a very, very small lot, a third of an acre, and it's tight. And there were some concerns about parking as well. It's a small congregation or a small group, so you know, it's not a big organization. Yeah.
I think in the last meeting in October, there were 2 businesses that offered their parking lots because this is primarily on the weekend, right?
Yep. Mhm.
Which may
Yeah.
help with those original concerns.
It was Upstate Guns and
Yeah, Upstate Guns and Ammos and Grams, but Grams is actually still open on Sunday. So we just it's nice that she offered her parking, but it's actually not complimentary. So really the only one that they can rely on is the one in red, the Upstate Guns and Ammo, because that is closed on Sunday. And he does have less cars in his parking lot on Sundays.
I think some of the neighbors have come to the planning board meetings, and generally the neighbors have been supportive. Is that true, Ron?
Yeah, so at the planning board public hearing, the neighbors were supportive. We did get one letter concerned about on-street parking and noise. But the only people that actually came to the meeting were in support.
and we sent letters to all the surrounding neighbors to let them know so that
Mhm.
they okay.
Within 200 feet.
Okay.
So regarding the 200 feet for neighbors to receive letters, like, is that the law?
Standard.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's from our code.
Okay, thank you.
So the process is that this has to go before the town board. it's the town board that makes this decision to grant the special use permit, so there's gonna be a hearing. And, that's where we would make a recommendation about the impact. That would go to the town board's decision.
They're deciding how far.
Well, they're going to take it
We're
into
part of it,
consideration.
we're part of it, yes.
So could I just, I know, I don't, so you said 200 feet?
Mhm.
That's not very far.
It always covers all adjacent property lines and unless you have an unusually enormous right of way, anybody across the street
Okay,
on either sides.
okay.
Yeah.
All right.
So I mean,
It's
it'll
the-
it'll cover.
Okay, it's the,
The only
houses-
time we ever do a 500-foot radius is a zone change, and that's the biggest one we do.
okay.
Like for smaller residential area things, it's only 100 feet because you're really just going for adjacent neighbors.
Okay. Okay, thank you for the clarification. I appreciate it.
Mm-hmm.
So does anybody have an item they'd like to discuss on this?
And the planning board had, it's not necessarily environmental because we obviously have to go through a different set of criteria. But if you read the planning board recommendation, which started on page 31, they had a lot of mitigation. So like they kind of said, okay, the minimum parking spaces that we're requiring are 8, because we're basing it on the square footage plus the seating. So the seating has to be limited to 30. They talk a lot about mitigating any noise or lighting with landscaping and fencing so that, you know, if for some reason it were to change hands, that you know, it could continue to be used alongside the single family homes without being a nuisance. So the main issue with the smaller size of the lot is really that 2 acres is a decent amount of land to mitigate, you know, impacts of a place of public assembly or a place of worship. And here, all the houses are really close to each other. So they did recommend approving the special use permit, but with a lot of,
Caveats.
yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So I can go through any of those if you want, or we could just go to the EAF and start working
Now,
through it.
I have a question because are we
Yeah,
going
post
before the
meeting sheet.
ZBA with this as well?
Yeah, so the ZBA is also going to take a look at this project. The denial is also in your packet. It's really a weird denial situation. Part of the denial is simply building permit related. A building permit was issued to for the structure to be replaced. And when it was built, they built it not in the exact same footprint of the old structure. Most of the time on a regular building permit, we would never even know because we don't require as-built surveys after people rebuild their garages. But in this case, because they were going through site plan, we had a brand new survey come in and it showed them like 2 or 3 feet closer to the lot line than the original building was. So that's actually building permit related. That structure can be used as a garage in perpetuity, but it got built when they rebuilt it because it fell down. It got built too close to the lot line. And so originally we thought it was just going to go for the sort of the building permit side. But we decided to literally cite everything just to be safe. So Clark and I also went through what the requirements would be for a church in that lot and cited that to the zoning board as well. And sorry to be very technical, it's weird because that's related to the use and the use hasn't been granted by the town board yet. So it's kind of like a chicken and an egg thing. But yes, it is going to go to the zoning board. If you look at the denial's on page 36.
Mhm.
It has the first top part is like the building permit building, and then the furthermore is the site plan use for it to be a place of worship. Yeah, I'm sorry about that. This is like one of the most complicated projects we've ever had. Mhm.
So with it, with a 2-acre lot, there must be larger offsets for that, for the house?
There
of worship?
are. Yeah, I think it's 50 feet is your usual setback. I think that's in the denial there. It's one of the reasons the planning board really focused in on like landscaping and buffering and stuff like that.
I had a couple of questions, please.
Mhm.
So regarding the use of a modified garage as a place of worship, whose responsibility is it to make sure that the place is safe, it's adequate, it's got HVAC, it's got restrooms, it's got egress, and all of that? Like, whose responsibility is that?
Oh, it's actually the operator's responsibility, but the town checks, if that makes sense. So we do fire inspections on all places of public assembly once a year, and they'd have to meet all the criteria that is required by New York State for any place of worship. One thing that is unique is that it was built as under the submitted to the town as a garage, but it's not really a garage. So if it were to receive approval to be a place of worship, it has to go through another building permit, be converted into a place of worship, and then it'll have to meet all of the place of worship code, which
Gotcha.
Clark was trying to work with them ahead of time and get the building inspectors to look at it. There may be quite a few modifications that have to be done, like insulation and that kind of thing. Yeah.
That's what I was getting at. Like, all we have is this one photograph, and to me, it looks like one of those photographs that makes the space bigger. You find that in hotel websites and Airbnb websites, that the place looks big, but when you actually go there, like, oh my God, like it's a little bit smaller than what I expected. And since we use the word garage a lot, I just want to make sure that it's not going to be like super uncomfortable in the summer, and it's a proper building.
I think the question related to that is when they have to bring the site up to compliance, will that require them to increase the footprint of the current space?
No.
So
No.
they don't have to put a bathroom?
There's
in there?
not they may have to have an accessible bathroom on the site. The building inspector's reviewing that, but there's no minimum square footage required for a place of public assembly, to my knowledge.
Okay.
They may have to lose some sitting space for the bathroom, or I think one of the other things the inspector's looking at is if they can direct people to the bathroom in the adjacent residence, as long as it's ADA accessible. But those are things that still have to be worked out.
Gotcha. Thank you.
And to a shook point, I know Dave Darpino of the planning board and I did a site visit there. So I've been inside the building. It's quite comfortable. It's a comfortable building. I don't know any of the details of meeting the building code and those types of things, but it's a fairly roomy, comfortable building.
Clark, can you share what month and what time of day you visited?
Yeah, we visited. It was not an extremely warm day. I would say it was probably
September?
in early September, maybe.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking.
Yeah,
Planning board did
I
mention
believe
that.
since then there's a lot of kind of parallel path work going on. I think do they have a building permit in, Laura, for
Heating.
heating and air conditioning or something? So a lot of that is going on with the building department, I believe. But we have been informing them all along from the planning board status that it will have to meet the building code requirements for a place of assembly, which I would imagine includes the stretch energy code, bathrooms, things like that, exit signs.
Mhm.
All
Doors
that.
have to open out, special handles, all the.
Right.
Yeah.
And somewhere in the packet, there is a discussion of who owns the building, and there's a note that the acting attorney has to look at it and see if there is any issues there. Has that issue been resolved?
Yeah, that was in the agenda statement. Attorney Hess was worried that, yeah, he was worried about the single family home being owned by the monk and then the congregation taking the special use permit forward. But he looked into it and he was like, nope, that's totally fine.
Thank you.
Does anybody else have any questions they would like to ask? Comments they'd like to make? I have a couple.
Mhm.
So, one has to do with the parking. So, the planning board has basically said that they're okay with 8 parking spaces.
Mhm.
And, does that include the, applicant's ability to use the adjacent parking lots?
No. They're talking entirely on site and they're also talking about banking some of them so that they don't have to be, so that it looks like lawn forever.
Mm-hmm.
Right. Because it's actually one of these weird circumstances where it's better for the neighborhood if it's still grass.
I
Or
thought
they're
that-
talking about grass pavers.
Yeah.
So
Laura,
when we were doing that, I thought we were only up to 5 parking spaces on the property the last time.
So
yeah,
I-
Laura, it might be good to walk through parking because that's an important component, and you maybe even touch on the different ways the zoning code determines how many parking spaces are required, just so everyone's familiar with that.
yeah, okay. So I think that is on page- actually, I think
And I'm thinking by square footage of the building or by number of seats, walk through that discussion, I think.
yeah, okay. So our code, I mean, there's a couple ways to calculate parking in codes. One of them is like occupancy. Another one is pure square footage of the building. But our code under Schedule IC column 6 states the minimum off-street parking requirement for a place of worship is 1 space for each 200 square feet of floor area. That's supposed to be floor, not flood. But not less than 1 space for each 4 seats where provided. So, the building is 984 square feet, which would require 5 parking spaces. And so therefore the number of seats inside the building becomes the controlling factor for parking requirements. So you saw they don't actually have like pews or like, they just kind of sit on the floor. So we they kind of did a calculation and looked at it and think like maximum, which they don't normally have, you could put 30 people on those rugs in that building, which if you use that number requires 8 parking spaces. They have the ability to say, we're never going to have 30 people there. We're going to limit, our seats in this building to less so that less parking spaces on the site have to be required. But the only way you can use parking spaces off the site is with a true easement, like an actual legal easement. Craig Serafini, the owner of Upstate Guns and Ammo, is allowing them to use the parking, so they probably will. But they don't have a formal legal easement, so we're requiring that all of it be on site.
Well, that was my question. That was going to be my next
Yeah.
question.
So
Is there a legal agreement?
not a legal agreement. So the plan right now is showing, I think 6.
I see 6 lots.
So the plan right now is showing 6. They have 2 that are paved. They have 3 that are banked inside the fence, and then they're showing another one in the driveway.
Mhm.
We did a site walk. You can fit another space here. It's grass,
Where's
but
that? You're not showing the screen.
oh, whoops.
Just so you know, Laura, we can't see, if you're projecting something, we can't see it.
Yeah, thanks, Clark. Yeah, so the plan has 2 parking spaces here paved already. Then it's showing 1 in the driveway and then it's showing 3 banked. We did this site walk. 3 banked is I think good, but you can actually fit at least probably another 3 along here. And then you can fit another one up here. They haven't added the full amount of parking to this plan yet. You could fit 8 here.
Okay.
It would be tight. We may, and that's sort of in the planning board findings, we may end up limiting the seats down less so that the on-street, so that the parking then comes down to 6. But based on our site walk, you could add in some more banked parking here.
Okay.
So this goes to my next question.
Mhm.
That they have. If they put in the 8 spots on this site, potentially there's a lot of impervious pavement for the size of the site.
Yeah.
So do we have to worry about water management?
Not talking about any impervious pavement being added. If you look at the submittals, they're talking about
Grass.
they would prefer for it to just always be grass. They'd need a planning board waiver. But if they can't just keep it grass, they're talking about grass tex pavers. So they're like basically like concrete things that have like sort of an S
Yeah,
shape in them,
okay.
and you fill them with dirt and then let the grass grow. They're more open space than closed space.
Is that a requirement? Is the planning board requiring that?
The grass text
Yeah.
waiver. So it gets a little confusing sometimes because these guys hired Dan Hirschberg to talk for them. He was all about building the grass tech pavers. I would say, generally speaking, they would prefer to use regular grass. And then if something bad was happening, then install the grass tech pavers. I think that their preference would be just grass, but they do have that engineered option. And like their engineer, Dan Hirschberg, had said, volunteers can essentially install them. It's not complicated. They basically just take up like 6 inches of dirt and lay down the pavers and then put the dirt back and put grass seed on it. So it's definitely doable for them. I don't think they want to, but they will.
Yeah, no, the reason why I bring this up. But congregation change. Someone may come up 10, 15 years from now and say, you know what? The idea of using the grass really didn't work. The pavers don't really work. Want to pave it over, and that would be a concern though, because of water.
Mm-hmm.
Lots
Yeah.
are extremely small.
So, I mean, I think that's really valid. A lot of times that kind of a change would trigger a site plan, where we would look at the impervious that is being added at that point. But if it is a real true concern, it should definitely be, if it's a breaking point, obviously it would be POSDEC, but if it's just a point of concern, then that would be a condition that the spots aren't paved unless
I think you have
they
to-
return for site plan.
In my opinion, we have so many water problems in this. You don't want to create something. I think you have to be proactive here, given the lot size. In the worst possible scenario, looking at this particular site, if you were to pave all that, that's a substantial part of that site.
Absolutely. The planning board went out there and did not want it paved.
Yeah.
Yeah. Because it would also change the character of the neighborhood if you paved that much.
Would they run into any problems? Because I know we're only allowed a driveway of like 30 feet max.
Frontage? Front.
Frontage. I mean, if they put 3 cars there, that's still under that, I guess.
Yeah, I mean,
Plus the driveway, right? Because they gotta have access for the cars. getting
yeah,
in.
I'm really actually not sure why the engineer didn't put the 3rd parking spot that's in the grass, probably because it's grass. But I actually think they park there now because I've driven past there on a Sunday. There is a language barrier occasionally. But I think they can fit 8 spots on there. I don't know if they want to. That's the maximum. So there's no way to go beyond 30 in 8 spaces. final site plan, I think, would kind of dictate the actual final location of the spaces. Go ahead, Clark.
Just for saying that they're no longer proposing grass text pavers for these parking spaces?
No, I think that the engineer has put the grass tech pavers on there. I think if they didn't have to put the grass tech pavers on, they would be very happy. But it's on the plan right now as grass tech pavers.
And I think the zoning code requires a paved area for parking spaces. But there is quite a bit of latitude for the planning board to waive portions of that. So the grass tech pavers were intended to be a compromise or a midpoint between preventing slipping from mud and things like that and not being impervious.
I
So-
thought we've
Correct.
done that before. Didn't we do that with GE1? Ask them to put down impervious
Um,
or not impervious.
Pervious? We did it for Iroquois Village. Their
Yeah,
emergency
okay.
access road is all grass tech pavers. Yes, it's hard to plow, but yes. They don't do a great job of plowing their emergency access.
Yeah, this,
But it does look like lawn and it
th-
can carry the weight of fire trucks. Yeah, I mean,
could be a
another
disaster. This could be a disaster in the winter
another
If-
thing.
if we actually got snow like we used to get snow, because all of that grass would be covered in snow.
Well,
So
the question is.
they're
they
gonna
have a
plow it.
Yeah, we should have them add snow storage here. Yep. This is at this point recommendation for special use permit. So this site plan is conceptual still in some
Okay.
ways. So yeah, we would definitely, we'll make a note to have them add
So-
snow storage.
Can we review? Okay, so I'll just wait.
No, go ahead. You want to review the
just-
process?
There's just so many different things going on that if
Yeah.
there is one specific thing that we're supposed to kind of go through to decide whether or not it should,
Yeah, the EAF.
yeah,
Yeah.
I think that.
Sorry, I don't-
Oh, no,
And Laura, is this safe to say that the planning board is essentially, by using one of the two different ways of determining the amount of parking spaces that you need, the planning board is using maximum occupancy of the building to based on the number of parking spaces they have for that site. So their occupancy in the building is being limited by the number of parking spaces they have.
The seats, right.
Right. And so what that picture that's in your packet, they provided that to us as a typical Sunday gathering. So we actually counted, I think there's 15 or 16, and then we bumped it up that they obviously don't have chairs. So we interpreted seating to be the way they're seating there. So then there's actually a couple of PowerPoint slides where we look at the occupancy and we kind of back into parking spaces. So I think the way I understand it is the final approval of this building may have an occupancy limit to it that's based on the available parking.
Yeah, it would. Yeah, it would.
But the question I have, Clark, is what is the fire code say? What's the maximum allowable people?
Yeah, we have that in the
Yeah.
in the
Like
slide.
200.
I don't know if that's in the packet, Laura, but
I mean, it's
the
like 10.
fire code is a much denser occupancy than they show here.
Yeah.
It's something like
see,
66 people or something like that.
This goes to the second series of questions I had about this particular one is, right now, it's a small group, but let's say the group grows and it becomes very popular, which could happen, or it draws from a bigger area. Now, all of a sudden, instead of getting 30 people there, they now get 50. Now we need, I think for 30 people, I think 9 cars is small. Because it really depends on how you calculate that number, but suppose you get 50 now and you need
Yeah, then, if
18
you
cars, so
if you look-
now what happens?
so essentially, I mean, if you look at the planning board recommendation, what they're saying is they're not allowing more than 30 seats in that building, and they put explicitly in there that there is no room for expansion, 0. So if you go to 50 and you start creating a parking thing, it's an enforcement issue. The building inspectors would check. And if there's too many people, it's kind of like a short-term rental. It's not my favorite thing to enforce, but I mean, you can send them out there, they can look, and if it's a code violation, it's a code violation. They're saying that strictly this site can only fit 30 seats. That's it. There's no room for expansion. I mean, that's the absolute max. And if it were to get a special use permit and it came back to the planning board, they may still even carve it down less than that. There's like 22 seats in this picture. And some of them are empty. So like
But is that really enforced?
the number of people in a building is enforceable. It's a pretty easy thing to count. It is not my favorite thing to enforce. It's off hours and it's typically complaint driven, but yes, it's enforceable. For the
Just-
record, my building inspectors are not going to randomly show up and count heads. We don't patrol churches. But if there is a specific complaint, like too much on-street parking or too much noise, then it's very easy for them. It's like the actual count of people is one of the easiest things to enforce. Same with the short-term rentals. It's pretty hard to say, oh, that's too noisy. But if you go in and you see too many people, that's an immediate violation. It's fairly simple.
Okay, I have no. So, we can choose to, make a decision tonight, or we can sort of, put it off to the next meeting, but what I would suggest is maybe we go through the form and see where we land.
Yeah.
Is that amenable?
Yeah, because we went through this last time to try to get to a spot where we could try to do this
Mhm.
this time.
Yeah.
So that I think that all the hiccups is whether this is the chicken part or the egg part. That's the most.
It's hard with the special use permit sometimes.
But we'll just
The planning, the CAC has even done this before. They've done a recommendation only on the special use permit and
that's what I
then
thought we would do.
wanted to take another crack at the site plan when it came back.
Yeah.
Which you can do because like, yeah, the site plan's still missing some things, but generally speaking, we don't require the site plan to be finalized. A lot of times it doesn't even really have engineering yet because they don't invest all that money without getting a special use permit.
I think though, the challenge in my mind here is that we have a special use permit because we have to evaluate, rather than it being a principal use randomly, you have to evaluate it on a site-specific parcel, right? So basically, I think the special use permit, in my mind, hinges on this. It may be appropriate use for R2, but is it an appropriate use given the constraints of this site?
Yeah.
So that's how I might, or that's how I'm looking.
And I also think that, I mean, you know, like, so even in like the proposed action, so we just need to make sure that what specifically proposed action is it? Is it
The proposed action is to create a place of worship in the existing accessory structure on the property, which they call a garage, but it's really not a garage. You can see from the pictures.
yes.
So the proposed action is to have a special use permit for a place of worship on the lot. The single family home remains a single family home.
All right. So
So the first question is, will the proposed action create a material conflict with an adopted land use plan or zoning regulation?
So I think yes, because it's already been, it was already supposed to be built as a garage and they built it as that's not a garage. And it's not in the spot where it's supposed to be. So I don't know how it cannot be, but Maybe
Yeah.
maybe that's me. Maybe I'm not understanding. It could very well be.
Well, if you have to go to the ZBA,
Agreed.
then it's
Right.
a conflict.
Right. Well, that's why. So I think that, so yes, I think it is.
The
Yes.
question I have is, do you want to put some additional like words in there? So, yes, okay, so there's a material conflict with the ZBA. In general, the the use is allowed in that area, but there are constraints with the lot.
I agree with that, Dart, exactly. I would say it's allowable as a special use permit. However, there are some conflicts with the existing zoning, the size of the lot, the setbacks, et cetera. The parking.
I mean, I think we should put some words in this because I think it's just too complex. And whether that stays in the final motion that we may make or not, just to capture the ideas, okay.
Yeah.
And Ellen, to your point, this is a complicated, confusing project. We've been working on it for months and it's still confusing a little bit to us, so.
Yeah, no, I understand. I just think that if you have to get through it, then we need to just label all the conflicts
Mhm.
going forward, and then that's that.
Because you guys look
So-
at different stuff than the planning board too. So yeah,
So, right, so,
you have to.
so are we,
Okay, so 2 is, will a proposed action result in a change in the use or intensity of use of land,
yes,
making it more intense?
yes. I mean, I agree with limiting the number, of people and yeah, okay.
So we should say yes, making it more intense, adding 2 uses to a small parcel, some mitigation by limiting number of people and parking.
Yeah, people and parking and, yeah, and I really, and I don't know if it matters to me. I don't know if it matters but if it's not built in the right spot, then that becomes a whole nother, if the actual structure is in the wrong spot.
There's no wrong spot. The previous garage was in a similar location and fell down. The previous garage was built prior to 1971.
Okay,
This property is a through lot. It has frontage on both Gosner and
Right.
on Albany Street. So it, as of right, isn't allowed any accessory structure. There's no right spot.
okay, but.
There isn't a particular wrong spot either.
Right,
A
but
lot of
what-
times
But the
when
variance that but what they got to build was built in the wrong spot.
yes,
And it wasn't built with what was supposed to be built there. Like, it was supposed to be a garage.
no, they built exactly to their building permits.
Okay,
Yeah,
Okay.
they're labeling it of a garage was reviewed as a garage. It was a very unusual garage. It didn't have a garage door on it. It only has a man door and it has windows, but there wasn't any legal reason that the building department can't issue a garage permit, accessory structure permit to someone who doesn't want a garage door on their accessory structure. Like there's no code violation there.
okay,
The issue was that it is not being used as a garage. It's being used as a place of worship. So it's not a structure issue. It's a use issue. The structure issue is very minor.
okay.
So when people have a tree fall down on their garage in Old Niskayuna, it's very rare that they can actually build it back in the exact same footprint. They just lumber is different sizes than was built prior 1971. The
Okay.
spans that you buy, it's pretty hard to put it back in the exact same spot. That's what I mean. Usually people say, okay, I'm putting it back in the same spot and it's pretty darn close and we just move on. This one just happened to have a survey because of the use.
Okay,
And so there's not, I mean, but
All right.
yeah, anyway.
I'll let it go.
So it was built several feet.
Yeah.
The Gassner Ave. Yeah.
Yes, yes. Okay.
Yeah, I had a quick comment on that also, please. I think I can agree that it's a change in use, but for something that's only used Sundays for 3 hours, I don't see it as the intensity of use is all that different.
Just for some more background, Ashok, the planning board has worked on that basic subject quite a bit to try to determine how many meetings they typically have. I think we tried to create a calendar, a yearly calendar that we would mark when they would assemble.
Yeah.
Um,
saw that.
It's been very difficult to get a concrete answer to that, but I believe it's only on Sundays, basically from 11 a.m. to 3 p.m. is where my understanding of where that ended up. That it sounded like regardless of where these lunar dates of worship occur, they essentially celebrate them or on Sundays. Now, they do have some number, and I don't know that we were able to get the exact number of larger, more of a fair type event. And I'm not, to be honest, I'm not sure what days of the week those happen. I think there's maybe 4 or 5 of those. That's just extra background from planning board meetings.
Thank you, Clark. So I think I can agree that 2 is a yes.
Does anybody else want to make a comment about 2 or? should I move
Can you
into-
just remind me this whole time they've been parking on the grass? Or,
Mhm.
okay, so
Yeah.
that's not changing.
I mean, you can drive by on Sundays. I drove by on a Sunday, and they typically have 2 cars in the front and a car or 2 on the inside of the fence parked on the grass.
Okay.
Hmm.
And again, just feedback from the monk does not own a car. The particular congregation of this place of worship, they do quite a bit of carpooling, and there's not a lot of um, automobile use.
All right, let's move to number 3.
Will the proposed action impair the character or quality of the existing community?
No. I can think of one thing, and that is the stormwater. That's my concern. Related to a property.
So no, as long as the parking spaces are not impervious.
As long as the parking spaces do not create.
Just another little bridge to the planning board meetings. They've noted, and I think this may be in some of the mitigation items in their recommendation, that there is fencing along the lot so that when cars do pull in, has minimal disruption to the neighboring properties.
Yeah.
There's been talk of the lights to try to keep them pointing directly down and not shining over into neighboring properties. So there has been some discussion about trying to mitigate the impact on neighboring properties.
And was there ever any talk about coming in and putting parking along Gassner?
They have looked at that. Based on where the fence is, you can't really fit a full car there. I think they do actually park there, but the off-street parking doesn't count. They actually have plenty of off-street parking, but it doesn't count. Right?
Well, I was thinking like,
I mean, sorry, on-street parking, not off-street parking. Opposite.
it's because
No, if you go to the site, the fence goes all the way around the property and there's like a gate that opens out onto Gassner, but between the end of the face of the fence and the parking line, there's probably enough room to fit a car, but not actually enough room on the physical on the physical property. I mean, possibly. I'm not the engineer there. I mean, there is space back there between the edge of the building. I mean, it's like, you can see on the diagram, it's like 17 feet to their property line, probably like 15 feet to the fence, maybe.
I guess the point I'm making, it'd be interesting to see if they have options. And again, the questions I have are primarily for drainage concern, but if you came in and parked in the back side there, you mitigate the lights going into people's houses, and I think the water mitigation might be easy.
Yeah, because the fence is pretty close to the property line and it's like on the property line here. So there's
You'd have to
Like-
move the fence.
literally no room for that there. But
I mean, is there anything saying that they couldn't extend the pavement? Does that garage cause problems? Being,
I don't think there is. Would like to look at options for parking maybe on Gasner Ave. So I have no, as long as parking spaces do not create stormwater issue.
Yeah.
There's fencing along the lot blocking headlights. Lighting is minimal. Would like to look at options for parking maybe on Gasner Ave.
does anybody else have anything for question number 3?
No, but that's a good idea for the parking on, if it'll work. If you move that fence and you can move it in, and then they can create the spaces, and then they can just, but without even, maybe not even, because even if they're the paver things that they want, the grass pavers, at least you're coming from a road to try to, plow them or clear them. It would be a heck of a lot easier than trying to do the other one, coming in the other way, I think. But
Yeah, it just seems very congested the other way when you could.
But anyway, but anyways, yeah, no, I think that's,
Okay, question number 4.
Will the proposed action have an impact on the environmental characteristics that cause the establishment of a critical environmental area? No.
No.
This is not a CEA. Will the proposed action result in an adverse change in the existing level of traffic or affect existing infrastructure for mass transit, biking, or walkway? Will the proposed action cause an increase in the use of energy, or does it fail to incorporate reasonable available energy conservation or renewable energy opportunities? Will the proposed action impact existing public-private water supplies, public-private wastewater utility systems?
so
No.
it shouldn't, right? But you might have to put another bathroom in. So, but
Right.
So
Yeah.
They have to have a dumper, or they plan to have a dumper?
A dumpster?
Dumpster, garbage, trash.
Yeah. I don't know. Have we ever talked about that one, Clark? I don't think so.
Yeah, what was that?
They had a question if there's a dumpster on site. I don't remember.
Yeah, I'm sure there's not. There would be no commercial type dumpster,
yeah,
I'm sure.
just using
Current.
Yeah.
Okay,
I
I'm just,
don't think they generate
Yeah.
asking.
waste, but yeah.
I would say that just number 7 is in, to be determined with whether or not they need to put in, a bathroom,
Okay. Yes, I
That doesn't-
understand.
but that doesn't seem like it.
Usually adding one
One is not
connection
that
to
big
a,
here,
yeah.
no.
If it was a septic system, it'd be different, but one connection to an existing sewer water line is, I mean, cumulatively, they can be problematic, but one in and of itself.
Right.
So, just like quick clarification question. Places of worship, right? They often include food, lunch, social type gatherings. So, are the applicants very clear that that such a thing will not be used?
I don't know that we could prohibit them from having food at their place.
That's perfectly fine, but going back to the question of the dumpsters and sinks and things like that. So then somewhere I think we should note that if they want to have gatherings and social events, then that'll impact the answer to 7A and 7B.
I think some of that can be mitigated, but we should definitely have it in there.
Mhm.
So like, for example, if they were to put, let's say, 5 or 6 roll cans, you might want them to just designate a place where they store them.
Yeah, so 7 is very specific to public-private water
Yeah.
supplies and public-private wastewater treatment utilities.
Yeah.
I think the trash question is a really good one. It
But it's not
probably
that
would
one.
go under maybe 3.
Okay.
So I'll go
Yeah, we
back
can
and
put
put
that
it
in
there.
three.
Yeah.
I actually don't think there's going to be that much impact on the infrastructure, but
And I think it brings up a really good point though, because as we've been looking at this application for quite a while now, that we're almost kind of looking at it 2 ways. One is a generic special use permit for a place of worship. And then this particular application. So, I mean, on the one hand, and correct me if I'm wrong, Laura, this is almost a precedent of, I'm not sure that we've done a special use permit for a new place of worship in the recent past. So,
Not for one on an existing single-family lot.
yeah,
Yeah.
so we're kind of, on one hand, we're looking at the code and kind of a generic place of worship. But then there's other factors about this particular application where a lot of them don't really drive. The congregation is relatively small, and we're trying to kind of balance both of those.
yeah, I definitely hear what you're saying, Clark, on that. Yeah. I think the challenge is that the code has a minimum of 2 acres. While this use for 2 acres for this use is probably a lot. This site is a third of an acre, and that's substantially less. It's 1/6 of the
Requirement.
required. So I think that's where I think the special use permit gets hooked into the size of the lot. I think if
Agreed.
this was a 2 acre lot, there
It'd
wouldn't
be
be a lot of
easy.
discussion here.
Oh, yeah. That can be easy.
Shall we move? Okay. 8,
Will the proposed action impair the character or quality of important historic, archaeological, architectural, or aesthetic resources?
I mean,
No.
No,
I don't want to be the one that answers.
no. I
Doing it.
I've been answering. It's, you know me. I'm stick
Number
my nose
10.
where it doesn't.
Yeah, and I actually wanted to note that at the public hearing, neighbors said that this house was kind of not amazing, and then they bought it and made it look a lot nicer.
Okay, number
9.
9, will the proposed action result in adverse changes to natural resources, wetlands, water bodies, groundwater, air quality, flora, or fauna?
Well, for this, I like that they're not doing the fully paved parking lot, and it's like a non-impervious, pervious
Yeah.
parking, and so I think it's like, on at least on one aspect, it's not an adverse change to natural resource. It's a positive impact on natural resources.
It just
I
could be,
think it's neutral. It's neutral.
As long as you don't pave.
As long
As
as
long as you
you
don't pay.
Yeah.
I mean,
They did plant some more landscaping, but
Mm.
they did take a big tree down when they moved in.
yeah.
I think. the
10,
number, 10
will the
is where
proposed
it goes.
action result in an increase for the potential for erosion, flooding, or drainage problems? Yep, so no, as long as the parking is not paved. Right?
there is space.
No
Parking is
storage.
not paved and there's space
And water management is
in there's.
I don't think we're talking a big water management
Right.
here, but
Or site water mitigation. Okay, and
Okay,
then will the proposed action create a hazard to environmental resources or human health?
No.
no.
Okay, so then you have in totality 11 questions, 9 of them were no, and 2 of them were yeses. Yeses were the first 2.
And I proposed an open question.
An
about
open
the
question?
About the parking.
So you want to give this
I'm just asking the board. You can decide. I would like to know that because that might be.
Wait, Todd, so which question number are you concerned with?
The park impact of the character of the neighborhood. So I'm just wondering if the parking can be. See, the problem is that you got the parking on the side and the parking is just like sort of like shoehorned in there. And there's a lot of problems, a lot of concerns, water, light from the headlights. It looks like it may just be work better to go the other way,
What other way?
from the other road, from the back of the property.
But it's only 3 hours on Sunday, right? 12 to 3 for the vast majority of their operations.
I mean, if we can get a legal requirement.
So, oops. This is the house. It actually looks a lot better than this because they've planted a bunch of things here now. But these are the 2 spaces that they're showing on their drawing. This is the one that they're not showing on their drawing, but I feel like I've seen a car in it before.
And then you're gonna stack.
Yeah, I'm
Cars.
surprised you actually can't see the cars in here.
You could see one.
Yeah,
You could
they
see
just pull in and then they pull parallel here. When they're in there, they are hard to see. You can actually fit a fair number of them in there.
Mhm.
What is that material? Is that a sidewalk? Is
What
that
material?
concrete?
Mhm.
What
Like
material?
between
The
where
house
the
and
yeah,
Yeah.
between the fence.
Yeah, this is just the regular driveway that was.
No, the lighter colored one between the fence and the house.
Is that a
That's-
driveway or is that?
Yeah, this is the driveway.
That's their drive.
Oh, is
This-
it concrete?
It is.
Yeah, this
a concrete
corresponds to this.
driveway,
It's
yeah.
concrete. That's the driveway that leads all the way back to the place of worship. Yeah.
Mhm.
Is it just me or is that too narrow?
It's fine. That's normal.
Okay.
It's not for a minivan.
Well, you gotta go back to the
Wait,
site there because it does look narrow, but I think it's just an illusion.
yeah, it's fine. It's just because of the way that the fisheye lens picks stuff up. But this actually looks a lot better too because they fixed up the fence. Like this whole fence is all fixed up and it has a nice gate. But yeah, this is where you're saying, yeah. I'm saying I actually think cars park on street here appropriately, but we can't count them because
No,
it's
because
correct.
where's the right of way? The street.
Yeah, it's very close to that fence. Is the edge of the right of way.
What about winter then? If there is snow piled on the road, on the edges.
In the back, you mean?
No, on the road, like if there is snow on Gassner Avenue and there's a snowplow comes along, there's going to be
Yeah, no, I said,
yeah,
that's what I was saying in the back.
yeah, in the back, yeah.
My opinion, I feel like the takeaway is there's definitely places that you can add parking if needed that does not need to be paved to the site, but the actual spots may not be fully delineated on the plan yet.
So, Chairman Strayer, would you feel more comfortable if there is a legal agreement with the business that offered?
Oh,
Uh.
if we-
Yeah. Okay, maybe is that something we can stick in there?
Yeah.
'Kay, if there's an informal agreement, maybe the business is open to signing a legal agreement
Yeah,
saying
what
that,
if Well, my biggest concern with the site is the project is the site. And I don't want to create a problem where neighbors have water problems or it's just so congested or, things grow that there's all of a sudden we're looking at a problem.
And we realize that it's only on Sunday, but, it's only for 3 or 4 hours on Sunday, but that is when neighbors, can be home. Like,
Mhm.
right, that is when that's their, it could possibly be their weekend.
Mhm.
It's not everybody's weekend, but it is some people's weekend, and you want them to be able to, they bought their home to enjoy their home as well, and so you just need to be respectful of that as well. I'm not a big fan of pulling on that narrow and, just trying to park in there, I mean, that's great for, March, April, May, June, July, but you could have some, or actually after March, we get some snow in March, but the snow is a concern in the backyard, and then, everything that you design for this one specific, um, it's not a business, it's a, place of worship, then does it all go away when the place of worship goes away, or does it move on with if they sell it to somebody else and it becomes that, that's
Yeah.
my only thing is like, I just want to make sure it's all in place
Mhm.
but
A special use permit is for the use.
Okay.
So if they sold it to another place of worship like use, it would need tenant change review because it would be a new tenant, but it wouldn't need a new special use permit. If they just find that their congregation is growing and they move their place of worship to another site and this just reverts to a single family accessory structure for a year, then they would need a new special use permit after that because the special use permit expires if the use is not there in a year. But
So
as long as the use is continued and it's the same, then it's just tenant change if it changes hands. The limitation on seating would remain for any additional tenant, and that would obviously be reinforced and figured out during any tenant.
Right.
change
It's so
approval.
I think that's why the parking needs to be right. If that is not going to be able to be changed, then that parking needs to get
Yeah.
figured out.
So regarding the neighbor concerns regarding the parking, there's already been some kind of public comment, right? So did any of the neighbors
Just one.
specifically?
One.
I mean, one is significant. Like, there's a big difference between 0 and 1 in this context. So what did the one say? Okay.
The one
Just if they said it was, I thought when I
didn't
read
want on-street
street
parking.
was a lot of on-street parking.
Didn't want the on-street parking, right?
Okay.
And
And that-
didn't want
that's
any
okay.
additional noise.
Yeah.
And the people in support, did they specifically say things like, yeah, we are okay with the parking?
They didn't say that. It just said they were in support. But
Well, I think, Laura, in all transparency of the people in support, the people in support were the owner of Upstate Guns and Ammo, who probably doesn't live there,
yeah.
and then the owner of the coffee shop and an employee of the coffee shop. So I just don't think we should mislead anyone that those were full-time resident neighbors that live there.
Thank you.
they-
That's fair. That wasn't, I didn't feel like that.
So only comment from an actual neighbor had concerns about the parking,
On-street,
on-street parking. Okay.
not on the lot, on-street.
So as long as they could pull in and park
Correct.
in there.
They just didn't want them interfering with their enjoyment of their road.
Right.
And they didn't want any increase in noise.
Correct. Okay.
So they don't have the special use permit, right? That's the whole point of this question.
Correct. And
It's
I
in-
really actually just want, I definitely think you can parse it out at some, because the parking isn't resolved yet,
Right.
is hone in on the use and then ask for a site plan seeker review, because I think the town board is going to need a recommendation on the use. You can look again at the parking configuration for site plan if you think the use is okay.
My
If-
question is, the whole question before the town is to use it as a religious space, and it's pending, right? It's not a,
Mhm. Correct.
Right.
are they doing this every Sunday then? Like, until we decide?
So they're not approved to be doing it, but I'm not sending my building inspectors out to pull people out of a building when they're worshiping. But
So like officially, they have to comply with the code, but unofficially, they're doing it in the meantime.
you know, when I drove by, there was like 4 cars in the driveway on a Sunday, and normally there's none. But
I think it matters. Will it change? Will it be different? Like, there are,
Yeah.
I don't know what to think.
Well, you see, that,
Baseline was actually happening. What we're saying is the town.
that's an interesting question.
Don't forget to push your microphones. I think we missed that on the record.
your
Dan, is your
microphone on, Dan?
on?
Let's get that.
We
Thank
want
you,
you for the
Clark.
record.
Is the,
Let's
is the
get you into
baseline
perpetuity.
the town code and what's actually allowed before they have this approved, or is the baseline the reality of what they're doing now? When we go through the EAF, is it, you know, what's going on Sunday, or is it if they didn't have this approved, they're allowed to do it as is now?
So I think it's relevant because the zoning board faces this question occasionally, that something has been constructed prior to them taking action on it. And when they don't get a lot of negative comment, then, and it's already existed in the neighborhood for some time, then I think they do weigh that in favor of it doesn't necessarily have a negative impact on the existing neighborhood. It's been there for a while and they're not getting, and in, as far as they can tell, it's not causing any neighborhood complaints. So in some respects, this has been there for a while and it's not causing any neighborhood complaints. But you do have to evaluate it in the context of the code.
When we go through the EAF, we are supposed to say, will it change, assuming that this is not happening at all? That they're using it as a house and a house only.
Correct. Yeah.
And then if it becomes fully approved, the difference between those two things.
Right.
Okay.
I mean, I
That's
think
what I was asking.
it's fair to say that it's kind of like an existing fence, I guess, in some ways that you kind of
you
have
answered
you
it.
kind of you kind of
Comparing-
know what it's gonna like be.
Yeah.
But-
Referring to the code.
So it's interesting that the one neighbor that spoke up didn't speak up until they were mailed a letter, right? So I wonder if they even noticed before, or if this was like a letter like, oh, this is being asked for. Do you have concerns?
Yeah,
Yeah.
we never got a complaint specifically about this being a place of worship. It actually had a sign out front. It was kind of a creep over time. But I mean, the neighbors did notice when the former garage was falling down. They called the building inspector out and said, if this garage falls down anymore, it's going to fall down on my property. So, you know, the building inspector went out and made sure that that they took the garage down because it wasn't safe anymore. So they were paying attention to that. And then when they did do this survey, their lot, the neighbor's driveway actually encroaches onto the place of worship, proposed place of worship property. They're definitely paying attention to the survey. But as far as an actual comment on it operating as a place of worship, that was probably the first time that we've ever gotten a comment on it operating as a place of worship. But I would say that they have been paying attention.
Okay.
So what do we want to do?
No, I can kind of see your point, Chairman, on the parking. Like, we talked about like what happens if it becomes like really popular and it's no longer 30 people, it's 50 people, now it's 18 cars. Like,
Yeah.
I
But you-
well, I understand that the 30 is a hard ceiling, right? But even if it's 30, that theoretically could be 30 cars, right? So
But they only have to have parking for 8 or 8. or
So-
6 to 8.
And
We're
just,
6 to 8, depending on what they
Right.
come back as, and then they can use the rest.
and be a little careful with being theoretical, because you can't hold them to a theoretical thing above what the town code requires.
Yeah.
So the town code requires 1 car for every 4 seats. So maybe sometimes
Yeah.
that's more cars and sometimes it's less, but the town created the code that says 1 car for 4 seats.
Yeah.
Not 1 car for each seat. So
Okay, that is fair. So let's say 8 cars maximum, right? So I guess I want to come back to how challenging would it be to get the formal agreement with a neighboring business, because that would solve the whole thing in very quickly.
Well, Ashok, that's come up a little bit and that's been discussed at some planning board meetings. And I think, and Laura knows this better than I do, but I think it would have to be some type of a permanent like deed agreement, because the ownership of that business could change and they could elect to no longer allow their parking lot to be used. So
yeah.
so that's the challenging part about making that part of the approval of the special use permit.
I agree. I feel like that going down that avenue would make this even more complicated, especially if that business closes.
No, it doesn't make it more complicated in the long run. Like, for instance, like 1769 Union Street, that big medical office building, it is a permanent deed of reciprocal parking with St. Cattery. So, because that office building is open only on the weekdays and St. Cattery needs more parking on the weekends, so the office building is allowed to park and made sidewalk connections to the St. Cattery parking during the week, and then St. Cattery is allowed to use that office parking. But they have a cross deed, so it doesn't matter who the owner is. If you have an easement, if you have a driveway easement on your neighbor's property in Old Niskayuna, it doesn't matter how many times your neighbor's house sells. There's an easement. You're entitled to it. It's
But
in
what-
the land
but-
records.
The
But the problem
trouble
is,
It's across.
trouble I
actually-
see with that, Laura, is what if a new owner of Upstate Guns and Ammo wants to be open on Sunday?
right, if there's an
And now-
easement, yeah,
Now
if
he
there's
has
an
fewer extra parking spaces.
if there's an easement in place, like there's cross easements in ShopRite, like you can't. But that's the reason that it's very hard to get an actual easement, because Upstate Guns and Ammos would be creating an actual, it's called something in real estate, but it's an actual sort of like tick against it. I don't know what it's called. It has an encumbrance
Yeah,
on the
of-
property
of selling. to
that
sell.
says it doesn't matter who owns this. This is always going to be what is here. And when you sell it, it's disclosed. So that's why if you are going to count that parking, it has to be an easement. Because if you are going to count that parking, it has to legally be there regardless of who owns it. But it is hard to get if there's no real benefit to Upstate Guns and Ammo. He's just adding an encumbrance to his property that would then potentially make it a slightly more difficult to sell in the future. So he may believe very strongly in this church, but that's why I think it makes more sense to make sure that all the parking can be contained on this lot. It's unlikely as a landowner that he's going to actually encumber his property with an easement. I mean, we could ask him, like to Dart's point.
I
like-
think interest money. He could buy the easement.
the church
The
could,
church could. but I don't
compensate
think
him
the
by
mo- I don't think the
purchasing-
money's there.
correct. I mean, and that's
the
how you would
challenge.
do it a lot of times. If there was no reciprocal ability to park, like there's a reciprocity with I don't think money changed hands, but in this case, typically, yeah, you would actually purchase an easement so that the encumbrance was compensated.
Okay. We've been. talking
But just
about this.
one last point, George.
So-
The key point is, I think Upstate Guns and Ammo barely has enough parking for their need right now. So the thing that I think clouds this is if another owner wanted to be open on Sunday, they would essentially, if he wanted to be open on Sunday, he would have no extra parking to really share with anyone. For instance, like like the coffee shop said, she actually said in her letter of support that she would allow her parking lot to be used when her coffee shop is not open. So she specifically ruled when it's not open, they could use her parking. So, I mean, there's so many nuances to this that the details are, it's all in the details of some of it.
Right. So to me, a letter that says you can use my parking lot is completely irrelevant to a parking analysis. That's nice, but it is absolutely not allowed to be counted in any of the parking spaces. And it's nice that they put it on their drawing, but and I think it could help, like, you know, we talked about, you know, Agudat Akim does the Carrot Festival and Temple Gates of Heaven has their Cherry Blossom Festival. And, you know, a festival is going to create a single day of more parking. They can use upstate Guns and Ammo parking for a single, but generally speaking, unless you have an easement, you are not considering that in your parking analysis. You're absolutely not.
So it seems to me we can either choose to move this motion forward or we can table it if people want to think about it over the next month.
So in the end, the minimum according to town code is 8, about 8, right?
If
7,
you limit the seating to 30,
when we are going to limit the seating to 30.
yeah,
right?
you can go lower if you want to limit the seating more.
So we like, assuming we don't want it to go lower, we are looking for about 8 parking spots.
Hmm.
And, you know, forgetting the snow storage for some time, how many do we have right now? I know it's there in the packet, but it's been a long
Yeah,
day.
on
And I
this
forgot.
list, there's 6.
There is 6. So so 6 for certain, not counting snow storage. And then we are having a delta of 2. And is there more public hearings planned?
So the town board has to have a public hearing. Yeah, they're calling for it in December.
Okay. So assuming there is no serious um, resident complaints about potentially 2 on street parking or wherever, I'd be okay with that.
So Laura, just to be clear, so the number of spaces and then some of the current proposal is then for the planning board to waive some of those spaces. Is that
Right.
correct?
Well, the planning board can waive 25% of the 8 spaces, which I think probably ends up being the 2 spaces that aren't shown would be my guess.
And I think we think they technically could probably waive even more, given the latitude they have in a special use permit, I think.
Yeah, we definitely think they can waive them to Grass Tech Pavers or grass potentially.
So, I mean,
So-
forgetting the waivers and all, like in terms of actual square footage, like how many cars can be physically present there?
Yeah, so I mean, our code is like, okay, you have to, you know, have aisles and things like that. But I mean, this red box here is a 9 by 18 square foot parking spaces. I mean, if you wanted to stack cars, which our code doesn't allow you to count them, but you can 3 here, you can do 3 here, you can fit 3 here. I mean, you can actually fit quite a lot of cars on this property if you really wanted to, but our code doesn't want any of the spaces to conflict with each other.
Stacking, 1 minute, just the chairman, like, just sorry. By stacking, all we mean is there's some kind of agreement between the worshippers that, okay, you got to move first before.
It's like if you have a party at your house. I mean,
Okay.
you can normally, if you just have 2 people and they're just going to park their cars side by side so they don't interfere with each other. But, if you have a birthday party, you get like 10 cars in your, but no, obviously the first 2 can't get out. So our code doesn't allow for that because the cars always have to be able to get out.
So is there a variance possible to permit that?
Maybe. We typically don't though.
Okay.
I think that's what the setting.
It's going to bring that out.
Yeah.
So I'm willing to move on this evening,
Okay.
and I'm willing to give them a negative declaration with the caveats that we get a clear understanding of the parking and a clear understanding of the, I feel like that's the one thing. And after that, once they get, I'm okay with it being used as a place of worship. And I also am okay, and I don't think that the bathroom issue is significant enough. And that allows them to move forward. But that the parking issue needs to be resolved, whether it's the fence in the back, the snow removal, the no stacking. You know, you need to come up with either whatever the town board, you know, whatever is put in, whatever they, you know, whatever is decide, but no more, you know, no more than, you know, 8 or 6 or 8 or whatever. I'm happy to just say 6.
I feel basically the same way.
Somebody want to make a motion? And then we
Wait,
can
well,
discussion?
one clarification question. If we limit it to 6 physical cars, what does that do to the number of people present inside the building?
It doesn't do anything to the presence of the buildings because they believe that you can have a reduction in by 20, you just said by
25%.
25%.
Waiver.
So a 25% waiver. So that leaves them still at their 30 people,
Is
but
it
not
good?
more
It
than
is
30.
true. You do have to have space for the parking spaces to be built if there's ever an issue, but I think they do have space. It wouldn't be ideal.
Well, you see, that was my point about the other road.
And
They
yeah,
do have options there if
Okay.
they had to do that.
Yeah. When they do waivers, we do make them come up with a drawing that shows where they could add the space, but we don't make them build it.
Yeah.
Unless it's needed.
and it must be stated that there is no intention that this is going to be that this is going to be pavement,
Right.
Okay.
and that they have a snow removal plan.
I think I can support Ellen's compromise.
Go ahead.
Shouldn't have a negative declaration.
For a second.
I'll second that.
Okay. Any other discussion? Do we want to make our discussion? Laura, we made some comments on some of those items. Can we basically put our concerns in there?
Yeah, so I mean, I've got clear understanding of parking, come back for site plan, in parentheses. Need a snow removal plan, no stacking, no more than 8 with 2 banked, 6 built. No pavement. No more pavement.
So what I would suggest we write on this is that if we vote a negative deck, we feel that the size of this lot creates specific concerns, but in this particular case, they can be mitigated via site plan.
And Laura mentioned last,
Is that what we're saying?
and I believe Laura mentioned last time that since this is a religious place of worship that has strong constitutional protections. Well, and then you said
Yeah,
something which
From zoning.
Yeah.
But you do need to, when there's a chance, give them the best interpretation of the zoning. If it's like a gray area, you need to give them the benefit of the doubt. If it's a black and white zoning issue and it's not allowed, then it's not allowed.
So could that, since there were concerns raised about setting precedents, could that be worked into the narrative that, hey, we are kind of stretching some things and going the extra miles because this is a place of worship?
I would support that. I wouldn't necessarily use your words, but.
Okay.
No, I would say
Mm.
stretching, it just sounds,
Okay, fair. I've
I
had
would
a,
say, given the use, deference could be given. to the
Okay.
applicant.
that's a nicer framing, and I've had a long couple of days, so
Sure. Okay, I think we've had a lot of discussion on this. We have a motion on the table for a negative deck, so I'd like to call it for a vote. All those in favor of a negative deck, including the comments that we have with that? And this will come back for site plan?
I put that, yeah.
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Okay. It was a long discussion to get to an
I'll try
unanimous
to.
decision.
We can be short with the next two.
Is that possible?
It will be possible. Why? Because the applicants aren't here. Okay, so just an FYI, the narratives are out of order, in your packet.
Yeah, I saw that.
We'll go by the docket.
Okay.
So, EAF 2025-11, 6 St. Gerald. It's a major subdivision, and this is kind of another odd situation, but the applicant came before the board and wanted to subdivide this property primarily just for his family. So there were 3 homes put on the property. And one of the there were a couple conditions that the planning board made, but one of them was that if it ever got subdivided again, it would have to be treated as a major subdivision. So the applicant has come and he wants to put on a 4th house on the property
really a fit.
and basically put the drive to an existing street stub on the north side of the property, which is right there. So the
Yeah.
applicant's house is the big one with the circular driveway.
Yeah.
Yeah, Laura mentioned it too. It's actually the 5th lot
Yeah.
that he,
Oh, okay, yeah, you're right, Clark, sorry.
And a lot of that was just from concern of like incremental development and not being able to understand the full implications of the subdivision and knowing that there might be an additional lot in the future. So he is in the process of preparing water reports and stormwater reports and sewer reports. I don't think that they'll show anything crazy because it's still a small number of lots, but for sketch plan, it doesn't require any variances, or it's essentially code compliant. It's one big lot now and it's being subdivided into a second lot. The proposed house is to the north here. The frontage, legal frontage, is on Antonia Drive, but the driveway is actually coming off of what's called Larapa here, lands of Larapa. And that's just because that's a more simple way for him to access the house. The driveway would have to be built to long driveway standards to support emergency vehicles. He's got wetlands located on here with a 100-foot buffer. Just being conservative with the new wetland rules. And I can't think of anything else for sketch plan. This will get a lot more detailed as it goes along. And we can invite that.
So the total lot size, Laura, what was it, 16 acres?
So the existing lot I went
Or was that 11 acres on that? Was that total?
it was in that neighborhood, I think.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It does the area before.
Yeah, so
lot
the
line.
existing,
11.
yeah,
Oh,
the existing
7
lot 4 is
acres. Okay, yeah.
11. It's essentially dividing it into a 7.8 and what is this one? 7.8 and 3.57.
So
I'm
there
gonna-
was a lot of
Will be
concern.
for his son.
There was a lot of concern when this came before the board. The first time was stormwater management issues, and the applicant only wanted to build 3 houses at the time, but as Laura said, we were concerned about incremental development and concerned that it would end up with, if you're allowed a quarter acre per house, you could have a pretty big subdivision in there. Realistically, you probably couldn't build, 44 houses, but, so that was just sort of the mitigation on that.
When did they present this originally?
Oh, it was about 10 years ago.
Laura, your microphone, Laura.
Oops. Thanks, Clark. The background's in the packet. So the Vincenzo Drive subdivision was the original. There was a single family home off of and what's the one? There was off of Vincenzo, and then they added 3 houses, so 4 houses total from the original subdivision, which is Vincenzo, which is in 2020. Some of you were probably on here when Polsinelli did a 2-lot subdivision and
Yeah.
deeded the back half, the wetland area to lot 4, and that also carried the same condition of the major subdivision. But so essentially, this lot 4 became lot 4A, and it incorporated this back piece. And he's done a new wetland delineation, and it's not showing these wetlands as big as on this map. But, essentially he's putting the house in here. So he sort of took this piece from the back of Polsinelli, added it to the original 2020 subdivision, and now he's coming in with the 4-acre lot. Polsinelli Drive was, I think, maybe 2023.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So,
But there was an earlier there was an earlier.
Yeah, the
subdivision on
Vincenzo, the first one was 2020.
Was it really? I
Yeah.
thought it was much earlier. Than
I mean, Homestead subdivision, this land was actually grandfathered into the code to be smaller than normal lots. Yeah, that was like in the 80s or 90s.
Yeah, I found some old information back in 1980, and there's something in 1990 too. So
Yeah, but
different things have been kicked around.
I mean, I know that during the review in the 2020 subdivision, nobody ever likes to see land behind their houses developed, but that land was actually marked for a much denser development, and he only put 4 houses on it. So it was a lot less of a strain to our infrastructure than was allowed by our code. There's no question. So that's just a read and soak on it. And it's sketch plan right now. And then it'll probably come back with much more information. I don't know if it'd be by your December meeting, but possibly by your December meeting.
Could you show one more time where the additional where the 4 houses are, where the new house is
Yeah, we
going
should
to?
have an overview map. Well, here's a good overview map. And sorry, black and white does not come out as good on that. But so this White House, this is a White House here. That house existed, and the whole entire parcel was this thing. Then in 2020, this White House subdivided, and they added a house next to it on Vincenzo Drive, and then they added these 2 houses on St. Gerard Drive.
Okay.
They deed restricted these 3 lots for no further subdivision ever, and they deed restricted the rear of this lot for no further subdivision. But they thought that maybe someday lot 4, I call it like lot 4 or 6 St. Gerard, could have a future subdivision. Then in 2023, this area here where the north arrow is, this area here got annexed, lot line adjusted into lot 4. So it made lot 4 a lot bigger, because when the Polsinelli Drive subdivision happened, this land got added to lot 4. Now he's essentially drawing a line like this across here with that additional land and making this up here a parcel.
And where are the wetlands?
The wetlands are right here, like just above this north arrow.
And you mentioned something about wetland delineation being done again. Like, can you expand on that a little?
So he's showing wetlands located 9/16/2025, and he's got the boundary of those wetlands here. That's a much more recent delineation on the Polsinelli property. It's showing these wetlands. I think they were delineated like 10 or 15 years ago, but it's showing the wetlands crossing this whole entire parcel. So like if I were to draw where his wetland scientist said they were now, probably ends right about at this black dot. And they're not showing any of this as wetland anymore with their new delineation.
So who does the delineation?
So like we could ask for that information. It's sometimes done by the server. Like Gilbert Van Gilder may have done it. I don't know if it's in the notes.
I believe now, Laura, won't the property owner will have to have that done and then submit that to the DEC.
Yeah, he probably will. Yeah.
Yeah,
So,
because to Ashok's point,
Yeah.
this year, I believe, January 1st, the wetland, DEC wetland laws changed. And the majority of Niskayuna is considered an urban area, which is one of the criteria that drives a 100-foot buffer to wetlands. So that's probably why he has his 100-foot buffer shown, because wherever the wetlands end up being identified on the property, he will need a 100-foot buffer from that point.
yeah. I mean, I do think preemptively it's good to have the 100-foot buffer on them. You know, we could put as a note, like our takeaway from the meeting is who delineated the wetlands and like why did they change maybe?
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm
because
just-
we're only talking about, 5 years.
It's definitely longer than that. So
Well,
Polsinelli, we made them put the wetland delineation on from a previous map, which was even older.
well, all we need to do is understand that, because I
Yeah.
do recall that there was a lot of concern about the water on this property.
Yeah.
And if
We
you
should have
go
them.
on the road where, if you go back there, there's a lot of water.
They're not delineating all the wetlands on that property either because we're pretty sure there's wetlands on the west
That's why I
side.
said,
This side. Yeah, there's like
Yeah.
a stream and stuff that goes through here. So like I think the planning board asked them for topo and where that stream is and that kind of thing. Yeah. Mhm. But this map is, I mean, topo is good, I think, for sketch plan, but it is a relatively decent map for a sketch plan application. Yeah.
I just think we should delineate all the wetlands.
Yeah. Ahead of time, just so we know where that is
Okay.
for the entire parcel.
And I'd like to understand the wetlands is
Changed.
changed somewhat dramatically between the previous one and this one.
Yeah.
Comparing.
Yes.
Yeah, we can ask them.
Hmm.
I don't know where the original delineation came from though. Okay.
Okay, do we have any other questions on this? Okay, hearing none others, let's move on. So let's talk about EAF 2025-01. That's Niskayuna Harbor on Aqueduct Road. It's a PDU. We have seen this project several times. It's further west of the existing development that went in several years ago. Laura, what would you like to update us on?
So I think at this point, you made comments to the town board when they were potentially looking at granting the allowance for the application, which they did do.
Mm-hmm.
And they were in the agenda statement, but I just copied them to the end so that they would be like the freshest. So previously you identified that you want to work on mitigating the impact to habitat and wildlife, preserving green space, creating a diversity of housing and aesthetics, having a mixed use, access to the Mohawk River. You want to look closely at the bike path crossing and that future lighting, trees, and views would be important. Also, wetland delineations would be important. So they've been working on it. This is the most recent plan, but Clark made a really good progression drawing for you to look at, and I highly recommend sitting with it for a little while. This is actually the plan that you guys made a recommendation on.
Right.
It has changed. This was an interim submittal that we said, okay, they did add a kayak launch down here. And they changed some of the buildings around. I mean, the number of buildings is about the same, but they did lose a fair number of units. And they added like a circular, and this is where they're at now, where they have a clubhouse and they have some amenities and they have a bigger trail system loop with the kayak launch still. So like you can kind of see how it's progressed so far. And then this map is just an example of River's Ledge to just see. Sometimes I think the planning board gets a little concerned that these buildings are very clustered and it's not like the River's Ledge configuration. A lot of people like it because each building kind of has its own view. It's kind of unique. Like each building has its like own unique site. And the planning board was really kind of honing in on the way these buildings are laid out here. But overall, the paths have improved, and kayak launch was added, so that's a good thing. They also added a sidewalk along the townhouses. They're making like a little gazebo in front of the pond. One of the big concerns that Clark and I have raised is that the grading looks very difficult to do because these buildings are right up against the wetland buffers. So you can't, when the building is actually touching where you're not supposed to go past, it's inconstructible. So Clark and I are working on a list of things that we want them to address for their next submittal. If something stands out to you, we could add it, or you could keep looking at the plans and make sure that you're going through your list of things that you identified.
Yeah, you can see a couple of the stormwater, this is just a rough conceptual stormwater plan, but you can see some of the stormwater basins are basically surrounded by wetlands. So, Laura was saying, how would you even get to that stormwater pond to maintain it? So the next step for the planning board is to basically make a recommendation to the town board on this PUD plan. So they'll have a list of criteria, somewhat like the EAF form, criteria that they have to go through and comment on in the course of making a recommendation to the town board. So, and just another little detail, Laura, could you zoom out just a little bit?
Mhm.
The applicant came to the October 20th planning board meeting, and he was kind of describing, they almost have 3 mini neighborhoods within this PUD. They have the 5 townhomes out by Aqueduct Road. There's 4 units per building. Those will be townhomes with basements right up near Aqueduct Road. Then as you come down the road, they kind of clustered these 8-unit townhome buildings that are pretty dense together, but that's kind of their more densely packed neighborhood. And then you can see the 4-unit condo buildings that are in orange. Those are scattered around a little bit more, but they also mentioned that they would probably be building these in phases just due to the nature. These will be individually owned by people, so just the nature of the way they'll sell. They said they would probably build the townhomes first, and then they would either build the larger 8-unit green buildings or start with the orange buildings, is the way they see it unfolding. They've also been talking about this being relatively affordable housing by Niskayuna standards. So there hasn't been any real definitive price range identified, but the planning board is working with them to kind of balance the community areas, like the small clubhouse that you see there by the green buildings, in an effort to keep it a little bit more affordable. They're proposing a little bit less of those features than River's Ledge, for example, which has a lot of really nice amenities for occupants. So the planning board is working with them to try to balance out a happy medium there.
Clark, I get the feeling that when they say affordable housing, they're not meeting the definition of affordable housing.
Yeah, that's one of the things that, is kind of on the list that Laura mentioned that we have to see if there can be a little more specific in that area.
Yeah, so I have been doing a ton of research on affordable housing because of the comprehensive plan. And I've been copying Dart on all of this because Michael Scrubby Tennis has been helping me. But
Yeah.
essentially, an affordable home in the town of Niskayuna is like $240,000. New construction just can't be built for that amount. So the only way that you can build affordable housing is to like subsidize some of the units or do something that lowers the price of some. Like based on our income, I think $350,000 in Niskayuna isn't terrible, but the average selling price in Niskayuna is starting to creep up to $400,000. And that starts to be a stretch for the average double income in Niskayuna. And new homes are typically even priced, on the lower end, which isn't like super fancy, at like $500,000. So
Yeah, the reason why I raised this question is we should really talk about range of prices, not affordable housing, because it's sort of a if you say affordable housing, that means something to some people because it's more of a technical definition.
Yeah,
And it could be misleading. in the
Yeah.
project.
affordable housing like literally means that you're not spending more than 30% of
Yeah.
yeah. And then you look at the average income in our community, and that gives you what your affordable housing price point is.
Yeah, so I just think I think the developer should have better clarity than just saying more affordable for Niskayuna, because that's implying something else.
I agree. Yeah.
So I just wanted to ask a question. So I see the three green, and then I see the two sets of parking. So is that the two sets of parking, like when you go in there? Is that the only parking for those three buildings, for those?
No, they have those are condos. And so I think each condo has its own garage, and that's overflow parking.
Oh, so the garages are underneath?
I think they're similar to the Lois Lane condominium buildings. Have you ever seen those? Oh yeah, we just drove there today.
Yeah.
We weren't really looking at the garage though. Ellen and I went there today.
Okay.
They have like their own garage for each unit.
Okay.
The whole building is actually kind of the bottom floor of the building is like all garages that face out.
Okay.
Sometimes you pull in the garage and then you have stairs to go up to the top unit. So these are 8-unit ones are very similar to Lois Lane.
So these are
Sometimes
going to be, are these buildings going to be
Two-story.
significantly higher and bigger than all the other that they're going to look down onto?
I mean, they have to be bigger because they're essentially 2 stories, but the roof is even taller because each person owns their space inside it. And there's 4 units on the first floor and 4 units on the second floor. And then they have that space to get up and in between. And yeah, they'll be pretty big buildings.
Okay. So, and then the lighting from all that will go down into those 1, 2, those.
Yeah, the
surrounding
4-unit
walls.
ones would be smaller. They're probably like more similar looking to like the duplexes or the townhomes than the actual
Okay.
condo buildings. Yeah.
There's
I think
been
the
some
concern is
interesting
that they're so much
discussions.
bigger
I
that
mean,
they're gonna
we
be-
have,
Okay.
we have talked about lessons learned from River's Ledge, especially in terms of street lights and things like that. And I think, Laura, didn't they say they were proposing a minimal number of street lights on this project, which was interesting.
Yeah, or no street lights that he might have.
Yeah,
done. Yeah.
Or no street lights. So they're, we've even talked about things like white siding and some things that the people across the Mohawk River have made us aware of on River's Ledge, that the reflections off the white siding can be pretty bright. So the planning board is bringing all those things to the attention of the developer here. The architectural review board has seen these preliminary layouts, and they've requested some renderings of what the facades of the buildings would look like. And if you remember what we had River's Ledge provide on the senior center building was a view that showed the topography of the land. So you could see how tall the buildings would be relative to the river, or,
Right.
for example, or the bike path,
Okay.
just to see how much they would stand up or tuck in based on the topography of the land. So there should be a lot more detailed, useful information for you folks in the future on this project.
All right. Thank you.
Mhm.
I do want to say, because I have forgotten until Clark reminded me, but like when we talk about preservation of green space and open space and limiting the clear cutting and stuff, when they are proposing to take these areas inside of the wetlands and turn them into stormwater management ponds, you have to clear cut for stormwater management ponds. So, and then you'd obviously have to cross these wetlands somehow to get in and grade here. So you're taking these areas or pockets that look like they were undisturbed land. And I mean, essentially, this all becomes very disturbed. And the uplands that would currently be serving, we are very good at protecting wetlands, right? But not all species thrive in wetlands. So it is good to leave some upland area, and they're taking the upland area around these wetlands and then turning them into stormwater ponds, which are essentially wetlands. So,
So on that point, we just some of us are involved in the comprehensive planning committee, and the preservation of green space has come up as a strong priority of residents going forward. Now, at a high level, the planning board, the town board has accepted the application for a PUD, but they have not granted the application for the PUD at this point. Is that correct?
correct. Yeah. So they only
Mhm.
allowed the application to occur. And
Okay.
essentially, by allowing the application to occur, they said this is potentially a good area for a plan unit development. So submit a plan and we'll look at it.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
And so, those of us in the architecture review board, CAC, and all that, like we see these kind of projects periodically, but in the context of the broader public to provide feedback, is there a public comment period, public comment forum, or some such?
Yeah, so the planning board will call a public hearing on their recommendation to the town board. They just don't think the plan is ready to call for a public hearing yet. The grading issues into the wetlands and things like that are still problematic, and they want to see a couple more things added, which is like Clark and I are working on them. I just think possibly if you're looking at the comments that you've made previously, I'm not sure that we want to see stormwater management areas integrated into the wetlands and removing the uplands like that and creating a lot more clearing where originally we had thought that there would be sort of a chunk of remaining
Yeah.
land
Yeah.
intact. Yeah.
And I think at one point we thought that might provide some walking area and some recreation space.
Yeah.
But Mike, I have a specific question about this. What is the impact of this stormwater management plan on these wetlands? Because what you're basically doing, it looks like, is you're taking the water that you collect on the entire site and you're concentrating it in these retention ponds. And the requirement is that you have to maintain the water flow. You can't increase the water flow out of the site, but these ponds are going to be dumping a lot of water into this wetlands, and is the wetlands going to be degraded because you're going to get an overflow of water from the whole site concentrated in one area?
Yeah, they shouldn't, because when they do the engineering, the stormwater ponds are supposed to hold in such essentially the impervious site for the entire area and then release it slowly.
Yeah, but you're still taking it over. In other words, if you look at the west side of the site, you're taking all that water and eventually it's going to dump into those wetlands.
Oh yeah, no,
As opposed to
the plan shows it going into the
going
wetlands.
elsewhere.
Yeah.
So,
But the idea with the on-site management is that it holds it back and then releases it into the wetlands like there isn't a massive rainstorm.
yeah, I
Yeah.
guess my comment goes, you have all your retention ponds concentrated in a sensitive area. It would be better to take those retention ponds and distribute them throughout the property.
Yeah.
Yes,
Make
because
that note.
all it does is cause, if that fails, it all fails, as opposed to if
Yeah.
they're split up and one fails, it's a,
Right, I mean,
Yeah, I
it's
don't know.
unclear to me that those wetlands will remain the same because you're probably channeling a lot more water into that area of the site.
And I mean, they are leaving this whole area down here, on the other side of the Erie Canal. This,
Yeah,
that obviously probably you could put a trail in there and hardly even clear anything. But this is a lot more disturbed than I think we originally thought when we saw the initial plans, because stormwater hadn't been delineated yet.
Mhm. Yeah, I think when we looked at the original plan, And my assumption was that was not going to touch.
Yeah, mine. Well,
It's a lot.
Sure. Kind of in the broader picture to your question. So like we said, the town board approved the PUD application to go forward. Then this is all outlined in Article 7 of the zoning code. And that lists several criteria that the planning board has to kind of review this against. So that's where we are right now. Our code procedure is that through a series of planning board meetings, the applicant and the planning board kind of refine the sketch plan and get to a version that is kind of reasonably agreeable to the applicant and the planning board. Then they hold a public hearing on that plan. Then the planning board makes their recommendation on that plan to the town board. Then the town board holds another public hearing, and then the town board would take action on what is it called at that point again, Laura? It's
tentative zoning approval.
tentative zoning approval. So that's the basic process, but some of the things that you guys are bringing up for discussion, those are exactly the topics that have to be discussed and become part of the recommendation from the planning board. The density of the homes, the impact on stormwater and wetlands and things like that.
Hey, Clark, could you, I have a question and maybe this will clarify it, but so the PUD, the tentative approval of the PUD or the tentative site plan, that approval of that PUD depends on what's presented to the town board. And if that changes substantially, does the PUD go away?
It would have to go back
I think that approval would go away, yes, yeah.
So my question is, wouldn't that require seeker action before it went for that hearing?
the tentative zoning. Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely. Yes.
Okay.
Yeah,
That's-
absolutely. Yeah, that's
Yeah,
why
the
we're
one-
starting to bring it to you guys.
Not getting too far into the weeds, but the one thing that Laura and I have dug into, and again, because we don't do these a lot, sketch plan kind of gets merged into the next level of approving the zoning change. That's why that approval that the town board would ultimately give is the tentative zoning change. So there isn't a specific sketch plan approval. Like there's not a resolution to grant sketch plan approval. That becomes more of a recommendation to the town board. But
Okay.
you're also right. If anything changes significantly, then we have to hold a new public hearing, and the town board may have to repeat the procedure of reviewing the approval.
But one thing to keep in mind is that the tentative zoning approval typically sets the upper threshold of units allowed. Like they can go down from there, but they can't go up. So for instance, if, the town board granted something that looked like this, the developer may push through site plan because these are the number of units that were granted, So it's really important to get at least the balance of the property right for tentative zoning approval. It can change a little. If it changes a lot, it has to go back to the town board. But the basic concept should be pretty good prior to tentative zoning approval.
So I guess in that light, I do have concerns about the retention ponds, the way they're.
Yeah, I wrote that one down.
the
And I
clear
wrote
cut, And
no streetlights.
just a general overall density seems to be quite high.
Yeah, it is very big. It's a lot.
It's a lot.
So they definitely reduced it from last time, but like you can see on Clark's maps, they actually didn't reduce the number of buildings.
No.
So it may not actually be the number of units as it is the number of buildings this much.
The buildings. I
Yeah.
don't know if it's space
Yeah, the buildings went, I believe, from 36 buildings to 32, and units went from 200 to 152. But you're right, in terms of buildings, it's still relatively densely packed. And to your previous point about affordability, the applicant is citing density as a vehicle to getting to affordability, but agreed that there needs to be more definition on that connection and more specifics on that.
Yeah, because when we're
So those are things to be balanced.
we're talking about like needing to build more of the missing middle. So the actual number of units may not be as much of an issue as the number of buildings.
And echoing all of the discussion here, I also want to say that I have concerns about the loss of green space in one of the few last undisturbed areas, and that that's following the guidelines, not guidelines, following the resident wishes as expressed in the comprehensive planning survey. I mean, you have all seen what comes to the top in the comprehensive planning survey. Sorry, I had a long couple of days, so my words are a little. So, and again, like, I just want to make sure that the public has ample opportunity to be aware of the project, and have a chance to provide feedback and balance the economic benefits versus the loss of green space, and make informed comments. Because as far as I know, the vast majority of Niskayuna people are not aware of this project at this point. I don't believe it's been widely reported in the press, and we know, right, because we are all part of committees. But I'd really like the public to be better informed of this.
Anything else for the planning board?
Yeah, I had some. I'm sorry to keep you all here. I had some specific questions. In the very first part of this thing, it says 41.26 acres and 18.85 acres of open space, and I did not see 18.85 in any of the maps. It said 11. So I just want to make sure I have some clarification on where the 18.85 came from, how that number is calculated.
Is that in the report, the written report?
It is in like when we're doing the EAF things, it's
Oh,
on
EAF.
in the very first. So in the packet, it's page 38.
Whoops.
Under summary statement.
Okay, yeah, clerk and I can go back. They may have been from one of their original proposals, so we'll go back and make sure that's right.
Okay, and going a little bit back into zoning history, the whole site was zoned I-G, industrial general, and at some point in the past, it got converted to R2.
Yes.
But there was an ancient PUD application, which can you quickly summarize, Laura? Sorry for asking.
I believe the old PUD was actually called Niskayuna Harbor as well.
Okay.
It never got built. So you can't have a PUD in an IG zone. So they rezoned the underlying zoning to R2 and then got approval for the PUD to be built. It's just the developer never built it.
Do we know the reason?
No, it was in the 80s. So I'm not sure why. But I mean, it was a pretty intense development map. I've seen it before. Like, it actually had a lot of boat slips and a hotel or something like that. I mean, it was a very, and like, it pretended like there was no wetlands on the property at all because it was the 80s. So I mean, I'm sure there were wetlands on in the 80s, but the proposal that I saw was just complete development from inch to inch.
Okay.
Yeah.
And staying with the topic of open space for a minute, item 6 on page 50 says 46% of total area will not be developed due to wetlands, floodplains, and set-asides for open space. And again, I tried looking at the maps to figure out where the 46% was. Page 50. And and again, it'll be nice to have some clarity on item 6 on page 50.
Oh, I gotcha.
Yeah.
Okay.
Like we were talking about, not all green space that is set aside is created equal. Like some are more disturbed than others. Like, okay, 46%, and what do that 46% actually look like? What exactly is protected? And it'll be nice to have some clarity on that.
Yeah, and make sure that they're
Mm.
not converting that into the
Yeah,
stormwater management.
exactly.
Yeah.
And
It
Uh,
looks like.
Yeah.
yeah, and I had some concerns about private ownership of roads. And just stating that. Because sometimes underserved communities and minorities, well, you know what my concern is.
Don't
It's a
get
fair
as good
concern.
service.
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah.
I think that's true.
Okay, that's what I have.
Thank you.
We'll dive into those, sure, because those are great, great topics to be looked at as part of the recommendation.
Yeah, we might be able to incorporate those into our letter too, clerk.
Okay. Any other comments about Niskuna Harbor? Okay, discussion topics.
In the interest of time, Chairman, I request that Daniel and his nice work with Quiet Niskuna brought to the front of the items.
I am not opposed to that. If everybody wants to do that, we
I'm
can do
good.
that. Let's do it. Laura, are you okay with that?
Mhm. Yeah, definitely.
So I had a meeting with Laura this week. We changed around some wording and discussed the section and where it makes sense. Ultimately, feeling like the best chance that this has of success would be to fit it into noise. And I understand we have other reasons for wanting this, but that doesn't mean that those reasons aren't still valid. Putting it into the noise section of the town law made the most sense and is the easiest place to integrate it. So I reworded it, I renumbered it. Laura looked it over, changed the definitions as we talked about last time, and resent it to everybody. And yeah, I'd like to make a motion to do whatever's next with this thing.
I had two questions, Daniel. Like, first of all, this is fantastic work. So something that a lot of residents frequently bring up. And are you aware of any other municipality in New York State that has successfully passed such an ordinance?
Yes.
Yeah, a bunch.
Could you send those via email, like with some links to their webpage or whatever?
I can send you a list. Yeah.
Okay. And
There's a Westchester County spreadsheet. Nearly all of those townships have done so.
okay, is anything in upstate New York?
We would be the first in the capital region.
Okay, and regarding
That's not a bad thing.
that is not a bad thing at all. It's a good thing. And regarding the other counties other municipalities that have adopted similar ordinances, are you aware of any lawsuits, legal challenges?
I didn't dig that far. I am aware of one township that started out with an actual shortened span, tried it for 2 years, and then moved all together to ban them completely. No
Okay.
2 months, no time frame. They went from trying to shorten it and then decided to just go all.
That was actually my second question, like a ramp.
Yeah.
Because if somebody has a gas-powered blower, and it would be nice to give them like a transition, like an off ramp. It's okay, yeah.
I think this is a compromise. I think
Mm.
for one, if this was adopted anytime soon, we're already done for the season, right? Like
Mhm.
won't be adopted before the date we're proposing, right? So it would be essentially for next fall. Gives them time to research, purchase, find an electric version, and they also still can use it during the 2 months where they need it the most.
Okay. So you do say in your code that in your draft code that except from October 1st to December 15th. So in the quote unquote peak leafy period, the gas powered ones are still okay.
Only during the hours that they're already open.
Yeah, 7 a.m. to
Yes.
9 p.m.
Correct.
The
know,
impression I get with this is what we're gonna do is we're gonna cut out the person that wants to clean their driveway every single morning with their gas powered.
We're also going to cut out having back to back landscapers who are doing this all day for people that are at their house all summer, because part of that service, generally speaking, is that they leaf blow off the whole driveway at the end, and it's constant in my neighborhood.
So I actually think the most impact on this would be to the professional companies, because a lot of people really only pull their leaf blowers out in the fall. But professional companies use them all year, well, most year round.
Yep.
And so they're going to have to figure out a way to transition to electric landscape equipment. Once they transition, they're not going to use the gas powered ones in the fall, because why would they do that?
Right. Problem solved there too.
Yeah.
It means that I swear they park their truck on my street. They'll do 1 yard, then they immediately go, and they have like 6 or 7 clients, and
Makes sense.
it's like an hour and a half total of
Yes.
me just listening to this while I'm working.
I'm supportive. And what if this were to become an ordinance, what would be the next step?
Yeah, so I think you guys should do a motion to recommend the town board adopt this legislation.
I have one more question. When you said that there was one municipality that started with a limitation and then went to a full ban, are you saying that no other municipality has a full ban? Or
No, there's several with full bans.
Okay,
but
you're
I
the only one
found-
that did both.
I found at least one example of one that tried the shortened window and then decided, no, that's not even enough. And 2 years later, totally
So
banned.
it's a mix of
There's a mix of, I would say the most common one that I saw is putting in some kind of fall exemption. But then the second most, there's at least a handful of outright bans.
As far as litigation goes, though, having a window of opportunity tends to stand up more in court than a full ban. Stand up more in court.
What
than
do you
full
mean?
ban. So
Meaning-
as far like when it comes to zoning, like, you know, I like to use this one as an example. We have an adult use zoning district because you can't outright ban adult uses. You have to allow to put them somewhere. And that's actually how you get around kind of making them not available anywhere in your town, but they are available in one specific place. So if you do a total ban, that is easier for someone to challenge in court than if you say, here are the reasons why we don't like it. You can have it for this tiny section of time, but the rest is not allowed. That
Okay.
tends to stand up better in court because you have that little keyhole spot of you can still use it. We're not taking away your entire right.
Right.
You have it here in this little keyhole spot. The rest of the time you can't have it.
I would imagine though, if most of the towns downstate have this, it's probably been litigated at least
Yeah.
once.
I can look. Yeah, no one's asked me that yet. So
No.
I'll take a look.
So
I like
this
doing
is,
everything in Westchester.
it looked really good to me. The process, do you think that we should sort of socialize this with the members of the board?
Yeah, I actually was putting it on today.
Okay,
I was putting it on for you.
yeah, that's what I was gonna
Yeah.
recommend.
As long as we get it.
And I like the idea of like giving, what phrase did you use, Laura? Keyhole? Like yeah, I you know, just for the odd homeowner who
Right.
he's not a big leaf blower, gas blower user, but would still like to do it, say in a 1 hour window or something like that.
Well,
Right.
I
Yeah.
also think
So-
someone would argue that they might need more power in the fall because there's tons of leaves,
Right.
so that,
But I think this gets us 85, 90% of the way where we want to be.
So love it. So the only thing is that I know that the hours have been set, but I think that the hours are too long. That this 7 a.m. until 9 p.m. is a lot.
That's more of an overall challenge though, because
But that includes like lawn mowers and
Yeah.
and
Well, we could put a
hedge
caveat at the bottom
trimmers
that
and-
we recommend that they shorten that.
Well, right. So,
The existing code says 7 a.m. to 9 p.m.
right. I think that
8 to 8.
Haven't you ever mowed your lawn with a headlamp?
right. in the
I-
dark.
Many of us have children who go to bed before.
Yeah, no, I wouldn't be opposed to reducing those hours.
I'm with you, Ellen. I'm just worried that you pack too much into this. It won't
I
it won't
understand.
sail through.
I understand. I'm just saying 7 a.m., and
Yeah.
9 p.m. is,
It's not great.
is that's long. I believe that those are pre, COVID hours where like I just don't think that
But part of that might cover the highway department going out because they start early. They come for the leaves like before I go to work.
Yeah, the
Yeah.
town is exempt from its own code.
Okay.
well, there you have it. All right.
Well, what I would suggest we do is let's take this to the meeting.
Mhm.
Let's get a feel. We'll be able to like dip our foot in the water and see if it's warm, cold.
Great.
And then go from there.
Okay.
'Cause
So
it'll have to-
without a motion, we'll just take DDHP.
Yeah,
and
I
cut
mean,
it.
I think
Okay.
if this is going to become an ordinance, it'll have to be formalized. It'll have to actually come through this committee again for seeker recommendation. So
What is E EDHP?
Then economic development, historic preservation, and environmental conservation.
Another board like this.
No, it is a town board committee board. So
Town board members that are like
Yeah.
a subgroup. Okay.
and then like people on the other boards go there. Like Dart goes and represents the CAC. David DiArpino comes for planning board. We've never had a zoning board person come, but we have a Metroplex representative. The attorney comes, the town historian.
I'll be there.
So
I love
if this is adopted, right, then the people theoretically have until December 15th, 2026, right? That's when it'll, whatever restriction will kick in.
Why do you say
No,
that?
you would if
Mm.
from the moment that it's adopted, typically sometimes there's a 30-day waiting period, but I don't think there would be on this one. I could check. But even say there was a 30, so if you adopted it in like March and there was a 30-day, then at the end of April, you couldn't use your gas powered.
But there would be no need, right, to use it in.
What we're
The
saying.
guys-
If you want to clear your driveway, no.
They do it with like grass clippings and stuff. But like they in the middle of summer, they have tons of them. Yeah.
Okay, okay.
It's,
Fair
it's
enough.
like more of the companies than the actual people, but
Mm.
actual people do it too.
I get it. It would be better to get this in place if we were going to do it before the season started, as opposed to saying, okay, August 1,
I think
yeah,
you want this before.
And then you send like letters to all the landscaping companies. And then you bring the building inspector's chocolate for trying to enforce this. Yeah.
Daniel, what are your thoughts about the, what is the phrase you used?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's what it is. Yeah.
Okay,
well, that makes it very difficult for the commercial business to operate.
okay.
Forces them quieter, but
Most of the year.
during the spring and summer when it's the most annoying and it's the most constant.
And it's not really.
Exactly.
I think that's fair.
It is also used in the fall, but believe it or not, like once the leaves fall, I see less of the full on weekly landscaping.
Yeah, the grass
Like-
stops growing.
Right.
Yeah, it's more of like a grass clipping thing.
So right, this Friday is the economic committee, right? And assuming we get feedback from the economic committee, maybe Daniel can can present a revised version in December.
I don't know if you'll get the feedback that quick, but we can try.
I think
What's after that?
really just the town board. So, like what Dart was saying is true. The town board, if they liked it, could take it on. They introduce the local law, call for a public hearing, and then it does get a secret recommendation from us, or usually it should.
The town attorney will look at it, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, and there can be iterations on this. But I think from my perspective, ultimately the town board has to vote on it. So we should give them enough time, a month at least, to be comfortable about it.
Okay.
That's
Lord.
my recommendation.
I like the idea of bringing it.
Yeah, I think we should definitely bring it to them on Friday.
Yeah, Clark?
Lori, yeah, just a quick comment on enforceability and what you have described here on the executive summary page under noise. You list that gas powered blowers consistently register above 115 decibels. It might be helpful to have a number for a typical electric blower, just that you have, if you're going to put it in the noise portion of the code. I think a lot of times you would have a measurable reading, like a decibel level, or like lighting, we have illumination at the property line, to have some measurable quantity. I understand that we're saying gas blowers are inherently significantly noisier than electric blowers, but it might be good to have some comparative numbers there.
Yeah, I like it. I'll look at that when I look at the lawsuit stuff too.
Yeah, because I think they're probably going to be drastically different, so just to support that.
Yeah.
It might help the case. I like it.
And Daniel, would you be able to do that slightly revised version between now and Friday? Like Laura, when would you need it?
I don't think it needs to be
I don't-
revised
yeah, I
by
don't
Friday.
think-
It's okay. Because I actually got to put it on the agenda in the morning.
Okay.
Yeah, but we can tell them that we're doing that, so they'll have.
I think what I would want to do is I just want to, again, think if there's support. I don't think we need to get into the real details at that meeting, but just, is there support?
Let's find out.
Yay.
I said it's going to go until 9:30 and you all said like, yeah, there's no way it's going to go until 9:30.
Very quick thing.
We could do
Absolutely,
three
'cause-
quick things,
Super
and then I
quick.
think we can
Okay.
adjourn.
Yeah, 2025 comprehensive plan. We did kind of miss our October 31st deadline. We're working really hard, but it's probably it's pushed back a little. Zoning code amendments. I have no updates, but I sent you guys the calendar invite, and I just wanted to make sure you all got it. So, the supervisor and her assistant are really proud of the bronze achievement. They're going to be putting the sign in the vestibule, and then they want to do a ribbon cutting. So I know you already accepted. Dart will do like a little speech. But if you guys can come,
I'll be there.
yeah. Oh yeah, you accepted too.
Mm.
Yep. So I think it'll be cool. We're inviting the news and doing a press release and everything. And DEC is going to come, and also CDRPC.
Yeah.
And we will have punch and
We'll
some
have
light
punch.
refreshments.
I'm
so
sorry
pick
I'll
up.
miss it. I'm going to be in
Oh yeah, you
California.
emailed me too. Yeah,
I'm
okay.
really sorry.
But I think it'll be really fun. We don't normally get to
I-
have
I was
celebrations
thinking,
like
yeah.
this for climate smart stuff. So.
I know. That's why I'm so bumming.
And you guys
I'll send
are
my
and you guys
compost
are
bin
the
in
Climate
my,
Smart community task
I'll send my
force, so
compost bin in.
Yeah. It's
Friday.
Friday morning. It's gonna be really fun. Come if you
Early
can,
lunch.
so that we can introduce the Climate Smart Task Force to everyone, because people don't know that you exist.
Fair.
Okay.
Mhm.
So, I will make a motion that we table the rest of our business for this evening until next month.
Second that.
Okay, does everybody agree?
Yes.
Yes,
Okay, then I will make a second motion saying we adjourn.
I can second that.
Do we all agree?
Yes.
Yes. Clark, you're shaking your head no?
No. See you later.
Bye.
night.
Thank you, everybody.